Hey y'all, I'm back with another DIY Christmas gift tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make this quilted oven mitt. For this project, you're going to need an old oven mitt. I use this for my sublimation and it fits my hand perfectly, so we're going to use that to draft our pattern. To draft our pattern, you're just going to need some paper, a marker, and then a ruler. For oven mitts, you want to make sure you use 100% cotton fabric. I'm using this cute pattern fabric for the outer layer and then this pink fabric for the lining. You also need either matching thread or contrasting thread. You can decide whatever you want to use. I'm using this pink to do my quilting. Lastly, you'll need some batting. I'm using Insul Bright. Insul Bright has a coating on it that makes it heat safe. You could use regular batting if that's all you have, but I really recommend the Insul Bright. To draft my pattern, I taped 2 sheets of copy paper together and then I laid the oven mitt on top of it. Next, I took a Sharpie and I traced around the oven mitt. You can use a pen or a pencil if you want as well. After that, you want to take your ruler and you want to mark your seam allowance. I'm using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, so I'm marking a 1/4 of an inch around the whole oven mitt. After you're done marking, you're going to take a pair of scissors and you're going to cut your pattern out. And then after you're done cutting, you can write down any notes you want onto your pattern. For this project, you need to cut 2 layers of your outer fabric, 2 layers of your lining, and you also need to cut 2 layers of that Insul Bright. I like to start by folding my fabric right sides together, both my outer fabric and my lining, and then I place them together. This way, I only have to make 1 cut for the lining and the outer fabric instead of doing 4 separate cuts. This also helps to ensure that my fabric is mirrored instead of facing the same direction. After I'm done folding, I place my pattern onto my fabric, and then I use a disappearing ink marker to trace around that fabric. You could also use a pencil or tailor's chalk as well, it works just the same. Next, I just put my pattern weights down and I use my scissors to cut through all 4 of the layers. And then as you can see here, all 4 layers are cut out. I'm going to go ahead and put that to the side and work on my next cut. Next, we're going to cut out our 2 layers of our Insul Bright. So what you want to do is fold it in half just like we did our fabric. And then we're going to place our pattern onto that Insul Bright and then we're going to cut it out just the same. Our last cut is going to be our tab piece. So for our tab piece, you want to take some scrap fabric that you have left over, and then we're going to cut out a 2-inch by 5-inch strip of fabric. Now that everything's cut, we're going to work on our quilting. So what you want to do is take one of your outer pieces and you're going to take your ruler and you're going to start marking lines. I'm choosing a diagonal pattern, but you can really choose whatever pattern you want. You could do vertical lines, horizontal lines. You could even take it over to your sewing machine and sew around each individual pattern piece. When you're done drawing your line, you're going to take one of your Insul Bright pieces and you're going to place it shiny side up. You can see there's a dull and a shiny side. And then you're going to take your outer piece and place it on top of that Insul Bright. Next, you're going to pin it together and then take it over to your sewing machine and we're going to sew all those lines that we drew. I like to use a longer stitch like a 3 or a 4 whenever I'm top stitching. This gives it a more decorative look. When you finish quilting, your outer pieces will look similar to this. You can see that it's nice and quilted and you can also see that the batting is really secure. Now that we're done quilting both of our outer pieces, you're going to place one right side up and then you're going to take the other one and put it right side down. They should be facing right sides together. You're going to take it over to your sewing machine and you're going to sew the outer perimeter using a 1/4 seam allowance. After you're done sewing, this is what it should look like. When you're sewing the piece that's in between the thumb and the rest of the fingers, make sure you square that stitch. Next, we're going to take our outer piece and we're going to cut little notches into it. This is going to reduce the bulk whenever we turn the oven mitt right side out. Now it's time to sew our lining. To sew the lining, you're going to place the 2 pieces right sides together. You're going to take it over to your sewing machine and sew it. But when you sew it, you want to make sure you leave an opening so we can turn our oven mitt right side out whenever we're finished. And then after you're done sewing, you can see here it's an opening that's about 2.5–3 inches. You want to cut notches in this one as well, but whenever you're finished with that, you're going to go ahead and turn your lining right side out. To do this, I just put my hand in there like I'm putting on an oven mitt and then I just turn it right side out. Now we're going to iron it flat and then place it to the side for later. Next, we're going to work on our tab piece. For our tab piece, you want to fold it in half, hot dog style, and then you're going to clip it together and take it over to our sewing machine and sew it. I'm sewing it with the 1/4 seam allowance. You could also use ribbon for this instead, but I like the look of the matching tab. After we're done sewing, we're going to take some scissors and trim that seam allowance down just to reduce some bulk. And then we're going to take our turning tool that we use all the time and we're going to turn it right side out. If you don't have one of these turning tools, don't worry, just take a safety pin and clip it to one end of the tab and you can pull it through. Now we're going to take our lining that's right side out and we're going to stuff it into our outer shell. Now we're going to take our tab piece and we're going to fold it in half. Then you're going to grab your oven mitt and you're going to place that tab piece in between the lining and that outer shell. You want to make sure it's on the side that's opposite the thumb. Once it's placed, you're going to take a clip or a pin to secure it, and then you're going to take another clip or a pin to secure the other side. Now we're going to sew around that entire opening using a 1/4 seam allowance. If you forgot to leave an opening in your lining, you can leave a small opening at this point. Now that we're done sewing, we're going to go ahead and start the process of turning our oven mitt right side out. So the first thing you want to do is pull that lining out, and then you're going to find that opening that we left open. Once you found your opening, you're going to put your hand in there and then you're going to start pulling that outer layer through that hole. Take your time because the batting does make it thick. Once your oven mitt is right side out, you're going to take it over to your sewing machine and you're going to sew that opening closed. I like to top stitch really close to the edge. Once that opening is sewed closed, it should look something similar to this. Now that the opening is closed, we're going to go ahead and take our lining and we're going to stuff it back into that oven mitt. So to do that, I literally just take my hand and I push it in there as if I'm putting on the oven mitt. Now this last step is definitely optional, but I like to do a top stitch along the bottom just so as I'm wearing the oven mitt and I take my hand out, it doesn't pull the lining out. This is what that stitch looks like up close. I think it gives it a nice detail, and like I said before, it does help with preventing the lining from coming out. Are y'all ready to see the finished oven mitt? This is what the finished product looks like, guys. Oven mitts are a great gift to give. You could pair it with a handmade apron. You could also make your own pot holders. And one of my favorite things is to gift it with a set of spoons.